Hey Falcon fans, I'm Thomas Mott. Welcome to Atlanta Falcons Today. We're jumping into a Falcons trade-up mock draft. Essentially what we're going to do is look at the 5 players in today's video who I think Atlanta could move up to go ahead and get from 8 up into the top 10. We'll talk more about that in just one second. First though, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We have plenty of great Falcon content, including brand new mock drafts, brand new draft outlooks, brand new draft profiles, player predictions, all sorts of crazy stuff here on the channel. If you guys like the Falcons, you're excited for the draft, go down below and subscribe. All right, so as mentioned in the title and in our little open there, I want to jump into the Atlanta Falcons draft. Most specifically, who are some players, if the Atlanta Falcons fall in love with them during the pre-draft process, NFL Combine going on right now, that they could move up, trade up to go ahead and get. And you say, Thomas, Falcons currently have the 8th overall draft pick. How much higher do you need to go? Well, as we'll see, there are at least 5 players who I think if Atlanta falls in love with them in the pre-draft process, they could go ahead and package some picks and go ahead and move up to get them, maybe up to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just a couple of spots to lock down the player that they want. They have 4 picks in the first 3 rounds, meaning they have ammo to go ahead and perform this move because they already have a top 10 draft pick. It won't be as expensive as, think about the Julio Jones trade years and years ago where they came from the 20s all the way up to the teen or all the way up inside the 10, top 10 to go ahead and get a star player. Those top draft picks as shown are number 8 overall, 2 in the second round, 43 and 58 overall, 1 in the third round, 74 overall, and then some later round draft picks as well. They have 112 overall in the 4th round, 150 overall in the 5th round, 188 in the 6th round, and 221 in the 6th round as well. So, let's currently refresh you before we jump into these 5 players on the current draft order, your top 10 as it currently stands, because you have to trade up with one of these teams if you wanted to move up inside the first round or inside the top 10. Jaguars are there at 1, Lions at 2, Texans sit at number 3, Jets sit at 4, and the Giants sit at number 5. Panthers come in at 6, there's a trade opportunity there. The Giants are at 7, again, the Falcons, of course, sitting at number 8, the Broncos are 9, and the Jets are 10. So, the goal of today's video, again, is to take a look at some of the trade-up options, because you don't have to give up a lot, right? First-round draft pick, maybe a second-round draft pick, and you go from 8 to 4. And maybe the guy the Falcons fall in love with, whether it's a pass rusher, whether it's a cornerback, whether it's somebody else could be there, maybe it's a quarterback, as we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and rank our players least likely to most likely, but I'll make the list, meaning that I think there's some sort of, likelihood that they would go ahead and trade for them, starting at 5 and working my way down to the number 1 most likely player there at number 1 overall. We'll start by asking you guys this. Should the Falcons trade up in the draft? What do you think? Think they should? Type Y down below for yes. Think they should not? Go ahead and type N down below for no. All right, our first player on our list. And again, this is least likely, but we have to include a quarterback on the list because there's always a chance. And there actually were some rumblings at the NFL Combine yesterday saying Atlanta could be poised to go ahead and make a move up to draft a quarterback in the first round. Now, I don't think that they will, but if there was a quarterback that they would do it for, it's Malik Willis out of Liberty. He has been the biggest skyrocketing guy postseason, getting ready for the NFL draft in recent draft history. I mean, quarterbacks always kind of get overrated and skyrocket in their draft stock, but Willis went from a 3rd-round draft pick to a top 10 pick. I mean, it seems like he's going to be a top 10 pick, at least a top 15 pick. Now, I think Atlanta could go ahead and sit tight at number 8 overall and take him if they wanted to. I would not take Malik Willis if I was the Atlanta Falcons in the first round. That's just me. But let's just say his draft stock continues to rise. You have, Carolina sitting there at number 6. You have the Broncos could jump ahead of you. They're at number 9 currently. Maybe the Giants at 5 could want to go ahead and take a quarterback if they fell in love with Malik Willis. And they felt like Malik Willis is the franchise quarterback that they need to have to replace Matt Ryan. And if they trade Matt Ryan this offseason, Willis has to be an option to go ahead and trade up to grab. Again, I wouldn't do it. I don't think that they will, but he has to be on our list. I had to give you one quarterback because there's always a quarterback in the first round that teams are willing to overpay for. And even though I like Matt Ryan, I think Matt Ryan will be the starter for the next couple of years. If they fall in love with Willis, you might have to trade up to go ahead and grab him. Next player on our list is one who's being mocked to the Atlanta Falcons a ton. I mean, this guy is on every single mock draft recently, and that is Ahmad Gardner, the Cincinnati cornerback, who is everything you want in a cornerback. I mean, he's absolutely fantastic. And while I do think he will be there at number 8, he's another one of these players whose draft stock is skyrocketing, and maybe you want to get him, you have to trade up to number 5 to go ahead and grab him, number 6 to go ahead and grab him, because he might not fall all the way back to number 8 inside the top 10. Now, the thought process here is you're not only getting a star cornerback on one side, you're pairing him with another star cornerback, a top 5 Pro Football Focus rating accordingly this past year, and A.J. Terrell. And so while Terrell is a stud, and you're good on one side, maybe the Falcons want to shore up the other side. That way they have 2 of the best young cornerbacks in the National Football League. I like Gardner. You guys know I like pass rushers more. As you'll see, they're higher up on my list here. But if you wanted a corner, you fell in love with Gardner, he could be a possible trade-up target for the Atlanta Falcons inside maybe the top 5 or right around, 5, 6, or 7. There'll be an ad break, pin comment down below. Answer this. Name a player you would trade up for in the draft to get. Is there one? Or do you want to just stay put, right? Name a player you'd want to trade up in the draft to get. Let me know who that is down below right now. Of course, while you're at it, make sure you guys are subscribed for all the latest draft news. If you are a subscriber and you don't have the notification bell clicked, the little bell below me that notifies you whenever we drop a new video, which we do, 4 or 5 times a week, 3 times a week here on the channel. It's as often as I can get them out. If you guys like these videos, subscribe and hit the notification bell downstairs as well. Okay, now, number 3 is a massive need, and that is offensive line. Now, he's a left tackle in Evan Neal, and technically you feel good about the left tackle in Atlanta, but Neal is one of those, superstar offensive linemen you expect to be an anchor on your offensive line for the next 10 years, and so, if he were to slip, which I don't think he will, if I'm the Jaguars, I take him number 1 overall because you need help for, obviously, Trevor Lawrence and they're going to lose Cam Robinson. They need help on the offensive line, but if he were to fall, perhaps Atlanta shores up that offensive line and gets just an absolute stud and maybe trades Jake Matthews, or, they move Jake Matthews around, or they move Evan Neal around, who knows, but he would obviously be a massive improvement on the Falcons' offensive line. Now, there are other offensive linemen you could wait to get, you don't have to trade up just to get Evan Neal. There are a bunch of ones that people are very, very impressed with. Ekwonu is someone out of, I think it's NC State, who Mel Kiper has going number 1 overall. He could be a guy that slips if, of course, they go ahead and take a guy like Evan Neal. Charles Cross has been consistently mocked inside the top 6. Giants at 5 is a likelihood for him. Tyler Linderbaum, perhaps you could move up to get him. I think you'd stay put and grab him at number 8. And then, as I mentioned, Evan Neal, the tackle from Alabama, who most people believe will be the first overall draft pick. But if he starts to slide, maybe you move up and go ahead and grab him and shore up that offensive line. All right, we get into the top 2. The 2 most likely players that I think the Falcons would actually consider trading up for are really the final 2 players on this list, and that is defensive ends, right? The first being Kayvon Thibodeaux, who I think is worth a move from, let's say, 8 to 3 to go ahead and grab. Now, you're giving up draft capital to get him, but you're getting an elite pass rusher, the likes of which you've not had in Atlanta for years. Literally, it's been forever since they've had an actual elite edge rusher on the outside going ahead and rushing the passer. And all Thibodeaux did at Oregon was be a monster his 3 years there, 19 sacks, 13.5 TFLs, a physical freak, a guy who, again, pair with Grady Jarrett would turn what is the bottom 3 defensive line in the National Football League into at least a top 15 defensive line. The improvement would definitely be there. I think this would be a fantastic pick, and it's one that I don't expect to fall back to number 8, which is why I would consider trading up to go ahead and grab him. All right, let's go ahead and refresh through the 5 that we talked about so far and give you my number 1 player to possibly trade up for if you are the Atlanta Falcons in this year's 2022 NFL Draft. We started with a quarterback, although unlikely. I don't think they're going to take a quarterback in the first round, but if they wanted to, Malik Willis is rocketing up draft boards and might be, needed to trade up to go ahead and grab him. Ahmad Gardner is a very popular pick right now in a lot of Falcon mock drafts. If you can't get a pass rusher, you get the next best thing. That is cornerback on the defense. He might need to be traded up for to go ahead and grab because people love him more than Derek Stingley. Evan Neal, or just insert any of the first-round offensive linemen here. I don't think you need to trade up because there are at least 4 offensive linemen between Linderbaum and Charles Cross and Ekwonu who you can go ahead and stay put and grab. But if Neal were to drop a little bit, maybe Arthur Smith is salivating too much and protecting Matt Ryan. He moves up and grabs him. Kayvon Thibodeaux, who I think would be fantastic to trade up for. Big fan of his. And finally, Aidan Hutchinson, defensive end out of Michigan, coming in at number 1. Now, Hutchinson is ranked higher than Thibodeaux in most mock drafts. I think you can kind of go either way. I think Hutchinson has a lot more TJ Watt in him, whereas Thibodeaux has a lot more, I'd say Jadeveon Clowney, a little more explosive. It's kind of my take on watching the film. Either way, this Falcon defensive line depth chart needs something. I'm fine with David Ojabo or George Karlaftis or Trayvon Walker, right? Those are all pass rushers that'll go later on in the first round. But if you want to get the best of the best, why not go with the number 1 pass rusher in this mock draft in Aidan Hutchinson? I think that he could be really, really, really good and would obviously make Atlanta way better than they actually are. Now, again, you got to trade up in the top 3 to go ahead and grab him because you expect him to go number 2 if the Jaguars don't take him, which I don't think that they will. Texans sitting there at number 3. It feels like the Lions and Hutchinson is a match made in heaven, but if you were to slip past Detroit goes quarterback, or Detroit goes offensive lineman, or something like that, then maybe, just maybe, you could go ahead and move up to get Hutchinson. Obviously, if you can't, there are plenty of other, as I mentioned, later round or later first-round defensive ends you can go ahead and look at. George Karlaftis will go in the teens to early 20s. Same with David Ojabo. Jermaine Johnson, a big fan of his, the senior out of Florida State. And finally, Trayvon Walker. Most Dog fans recognize him from the National Championship Georgia Bulldogs. He will go in the mid to late round as well. So you could trade back, which I'll do a video on as well in terms of trade back candidates. But today, it is the top trade-up candidates, and I gave you my 5 in terms of Willis, Gardner, Neal, Thibodeaux, and Hutchinson. We'll end on this question, though. Is pass rusher the biggest need for the Falcons in this draft? You bet it is. Come on. You guys should all understand it is the biggest need in this year's draft for the Falcons. If you agree, type 1 down below for yes. If you do not, then type 0 down below for no. All right, ultimate for today on our Atlanta Falcons draft trade-up video. I'm your host, Thomas Mott. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Give me a follow on Twitter as well. @RealThomasMott is the place to find me. Again, for Atlanta Falcons today, Thomas Mott signing off to the rest of your day.